You've never seen women's basketball quite like this before. Overnight, it seems Caitlyn Clark has transformed from a college sensation into the WNBA's most talked-about newcomer, if not its central figure. Fans across the country are still reeling from her jaw-dropping performances at Iowa, and now she's sparking debates among legendary names who rarely venture into these waters. Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Shaquille O'Neal, Allen Iverson, all have weighed in, and their words have turned the conversation from casual praise into a full-blown call for change. Everyone wants to know, is Caitlyn Clark truly the future of the WNBA? Or will the league's old guard push back against this unstoppable new force? One thing is certain, there's never been more drama, more intensity, or more scrutiny around a rookie's every step. And for good reason. They say legends are born in college, but Caitlyn Clark's story has always been bigger than that. From the moment she set foot on the Iowa court, she shattered records and defied expectations. Fans would pack arenas just to see if she'd outdo her last performance, launching threes from mind-boggling ranges and zipping passes to teammates who suddenly looked unstoppable themselves. It wasn't just her knack for scoring, though she did that at a rate few had ever witnessed. It was her absolute command of the game. Her sense of spacing, timing, and her quick-witted reads on the court turned even her staunchest skeptics into believers. Yet for every new fan she gained, there were whispers of doubt from basketball purists who claimed she relied too heavily on highlight plays. Some said she was a flash in the pan. Others speculated that her flair might not translate to the professional stage. But those whispers faded the moment she donned a WNBA uniform. Critics, analysts, and even her own teammates realized quickly that this was no one-hit wonder. She was more than the star of Iowa. She was the kind of talent that could single-handedly shift the narrative around an entire league. Whether it's her lethal shooting from the logo or the way she drops pinpoint assists on a fast break, Caitlyn Clark's impact is visible every time she steps onto the hardwood. Yet her swift rise has triggered a wave of attention and controversy that few athletes ever experience, especially at such a young age. She's learning, sometimes the hard way, that the professional spotlight burns brighter and hotter than anything in college ball. Michael Jordan didn't mince words when he first spoke about her. Media outlets were startled that his airness, a figure who rarely addresses the WNBA, took such an impassioned stance. He praised her knack for igniting audiences, calling her a game changer who could do for the WNBA what he once did for the NBA, catapulted into a new era of cultural relevance. Yet Jordan didn't stop at compliments. He fired shots at the refereeing, denouncing what he perceived as blatant bias against Caitlyn. The idea that officials might be harder on her because of her instant fame struck a chord with fans who had been noticing questionable calls in big games. Jordan urged the league to protect its rising star, but more than that, to treat her with the same respect any MVP candidate might receive. His words, carried by countless headlines, added new fuel to the debate over how the WNBA handles its budding icons. Critics and supporters of Caitlyn reacted in a firestorm. Some insisted that Jordan's comments exposed long-standing issues in officiating, an ingrained bias that penalizes flashy, dynamic players. Others claimed that her style of play sometimes invites aggressive defense, which could appear like referee bias. But Jordan made it clear that if the league wants to grow, it needs to encourage players who draw crowds, not stifle them. In his view, Caitlyn is exactly the type of figure who could capture the mainstream's imagination, provided she's given room to operate. And with that, the conversation turned from Caitlyn's on-court brilliance to the question of how the WNBA itself should evolve. If you think that was the boldest endorsement of her abilities, think again. Larry Bird, the legend from French Lick, Indiana, has observed Caitlyn's game with a special sense of pride. Her journey is closely tied to the state he once defined with his own basketball genius. Bird famously put tiny Indiana State on the map, driving a surge in college basketball popularity that culminated in his famed rivalry with Magic Johnson. Now, decades later, he's witnessing another phenomenon who's igniting that same kind of fervor. Bird has pointed to Caitlyn's lethal shooting and uncanny basketball IQ, remarking that while modern defenses often revolve around athleticism and physicality, she's spreading them out like few can. In many ways, she's carrying on the torch Bird once held, revolutionizing how the game is played from the perimeter. But Bird's admiration goes deeper than pure skill. He knows the pressure of carrying an entire franchise, a weight Caitlyn now shoulders with the Indiana Fever. In a recent conversation, he hinted that her presence could mirror his early days with the Boston Celtics, a young player arriving in a struggling organization, flipping expectations on their head and giving fans a reason to believe. However, Bird also mentioned the intangible side, the psychological warfare of being targeted night after night by defenders eager to make a statement. To him, the next big question is whether the Fever's front office can surround her with the right talent, just as Red Auerbach did for Bird back in the day. Without that, Bird warns, a star can burn out under the strain. For every voice praising Caitlyn, there's a counterpoint from critics who bristle at her rapid ascent. And no critic has been more vocal than Angel Reese, the fierce competitor widely seen as Caitlyn's primary rival. Their confrontations have become appointment viewing, and fans can't get enough of the intense on-court clashes and media soundbites that follow. Most recently, a few pointed remarks from Angel seemed to downplay Caitlyn's skill set, boiling it down to shooting threes from ridiculous distances. But is that a fair summation or just an attempt to undermine her rival's hype? You could say this rivalry is the WNBA's version of the Magic versus Bird dynamic. Two polarizing figures catapulting a league into public consciousness through their duel. Viewership for women's basketball soared during their NCAA showdowns, a trend continuing into their professional careers. Analysts say this tension, while occasionally contentious, is exactly what the WNBA needs to become a powerhouse. Still, it's impossible to ignore the hostility that can arise when two breakout stars vie for attention. Many wonder if the friction could escalate, with rumors swirling about locker room jabs, pointed trash talk, and swirling social media feuds. For now, the rivalry is fueling the league's momentum, and every upcoming face-off between these two is circled in red on every fan's calendar. Meanwhile, Allen Iverson has stepped forward with a perspective that only he can offer. Known for his fearless approach and streetball-inspired crossover, Iverson sees traces of his own underdog mindset in Caitlyn. Both were smaller in stature yet commanded an outsized presence against towering defenders. Both soared to prominence in college and faced enormous scrutiny once they hit the professional ranks. In Iverson's words, Caitlyn's aggression and flair for clutch moments signal that she's not just a scorer, she's a beacon for teammates. The trademark of a true star, Iverson says, is the ability to raise the level of everyone around you, something he believes Caitlyn does naturally. Yet Iverson also sounded a note of caution. He recalled the burden of dragging a team to the finals, highlighting that no matter how talented you are, fatigue and physical defense eventually take their toll. This is particularly true if you're the focal point of every opposing scouting report. That's why, in his view, Caitlyn must stay hungry, keep evolving, and learn from inevitable setbacks. A champion's real test, Iverson insists, isn't just skill, but how you handle adversity when the initial hype gives way to the grueling reality of a professional season. He urged Caitlyn to embrace the pressure because it means she's relevant and demanded, two elements that Iverson admits he thrived on during his own storied career. One of basketball's most physically imposing forces represents a radically different style from Caitlyn's. If Shaq dominated through sheer power and unstoppable post play, Caitlyn represents the new wave. Creative ball handling, deep shooting, and speed-driven offense. Yet Shaq sees a direct parallel. In the same way Steph Curry changed the NBA's geometry, Caitlyn is altering the WNBA's. Shaq credits her for a fresh energy that draws in fans who might never have tuned in before, all thanks to the lure of her logo-range shots. He compares it to watching Curry launch from well beyond the arc, a mesmerizing spectacle that can shift how the entire league approaches offense. Skeptics might argue that one player can't turn around a league's fortunes. Shaq disagrees. In his own words, fans are hungry for novelty, and Caitlyn offers precisely that. A smaller guard who wields a colossal influence much like Curry, a David in a land of Goliaths. It's a narrative that resonates beyond hardcore basketball junkies. New viewers, casual fans, and even curious novices are tuning in just to see if she'll drop another long-range bomb. Whether they stay for the rest of the WNBA's offerings is up to the league, Shaq hints, which he believes must double down on marketing players with unique, attention-grabbing styles. Magic Johnson, a man who knows a thing or two about expanding a league's popularity, has also drawn a comparison between the Caitlyn Clark Angel Reese rivalry and his own rivalry with Larry Bird. Decades ago, Magic and Bird effectively rescued the NBA from lukewarm interest, turning it into a cultural phenomenon through their epic battles. Magic believes Caitlyn and Angel have the potential to spark a similar renaissance for the WNBA, which many analysts consider just one breakout star away from taking a huge leap into mainstream relevancy. Yet Magic also stresses that reaching that level of influence requires consistency. He notes that just as he and Bird weren't the best right away, Caitlyn and Angel still have to prove themselves over multiple seasons. One unstoppable rookie campaign can set the tone, but to cement a legacy, you have to keep evolving. Where Caitlyn goes from here depends on how well she balances her individuality with the demands of her team. Magic praises her flair, but he also knows from personal experience how crucial chemistry and leadership are for building a championship culture. Will the Indiana Fever give her the supporting cast she needs to thrive? Will new coaches and teammates adapt to her style or try to fit her into a more conventional system? Magic's stance is that the league thrives on personalities that break the mold, just as he once did, weaving no-look passes and unstoppable fast breaks. If Caitlyn is allowed to do for the WNBA what Magic did for the NBA, he believes a tidal wave of new fans is on the horizon. Outside the immediate glow of the WNBA, there's the looming question of Olympic opportunities. Julius Erving, known to fans worldwide as Dr. JJ, recently weighed in when Caitlyn was left off a women's basketball Olympic roster, a decision that angered her most ardent supporters. Dr. J didn't sugarcoat the disappointment. He acknowledged how frustrating it can be to miss out on a dream. But he also urged caution, reminding everyone that a basketball career is long and some rejections can end up being blessings in disguise. He pointed to his own journey, which wasn't defined by any single event, but by a series of opportunities that led him to become an all-around basketball icon. By focusing on her endorsements, personal brand, and continued growth in the WNBA, Caitlyn might set herself up for a triumphant appearance in future Olympics. Dr. J's perspective opens the door to another dimension of Caitlyn's fame, her status as a commercial star. Whether it's brand endorsements or special appearances, she's already racking up visibility that few rookies ever achieve. Some insiders whisper that all this attention could create friction in the locker room where not everyone shares her spotlight. Others say it's only natural for a marquee player to attract these deals, and it's good for the league as a whole if more eyes are on the product. Wherever the truth lies, Dr. J insists that capturing public attention doesn't need to overshadow your commitment to the game. If Caitlyn can strike that balance, she might become more than just a basketball icon. She could emerge as a cultural figure in her own right. Vince Carter, revered as the human highlight reel, has been another strong supporter, but he's also quick to point out the pitfalls of being an instant superstar. During his prime in Toronto, Carter became the face of a franchise that was new to the NBA spotlight, and he struggled with the immense pressure. Local fans adored him, but the relentless criticism from media and opposing fan bases took its toll. He sees parallels in Caitlyn's situation. The hype is there, the talent is undeniable, but so is the intense scrutiny. Carter notes that rookie hazing goes beyond pranks in the locker room. It encompasses veterans looking to test a new star in every game, fans of rival teams picking apart every perceived shortcoming, and a wave of social media commentary that can magnify any stumble. According to Vince, the key is resilience and adaptability. The WNBA, while smaller in scale, is no less cutthroat. Its players are fiercely protective of their standing, and many have spent years building their reputations. Seeing Caitlyn's rocket-like rise could spark jealousy or frustration, especially if people think she's overshadowing seasoned pros. Carter believes that how she navigates this tension will define her early legacy. If she embraces the challenge, it might galvanize her to become even more unstoppable. If she cracks under the noise, it could stunt her development. So far, Carter is optimistic, reminding everyone that the best players often face the greatest adversity, and that's exactly how new legends are forged. As Caitlyn Clark continues her ascent, the physical demands of the league loom larger than ever. College games may be rigorous, but the WNBA has its own set of punishing realities. Night after night, she's a target for the toughest defenders, absorbing heavy contact in the paint and grappling with a pace that's unmatched by anything she experienced in college. Strength training, conditioning, and recovery become non-negotiable if she wants to hold her edge. Some fans worry she's pushing too hard, too fast. Others marvel at how she's adapted so quickly, brushing off hits from veterans who've tried to rattle her. The truth is, no matter how skillful or crafty a player is, ignoring the body's toll can lead to burnout or serious injury. And the last thing the WNBA wants is for its brightest new star to fade under unrelenting physical strain. Pressure off the court is mounting too. The media is constantly swirling with speculations about her future endorsements, possible brand expansions, or even eventual moves to bigger markets. Tabloids suggest friction between her camp and the league's officials, with rumors that certain WNBA executives fear her overshadowing established stars. Is she truly overshadowing them, or is she inspiring them to raise their own games? Opinions vary, but the gossip underscores one thing. Caitlyn Clark is the center of attention, for better or worse. And as we've seen with any transcendent athlete, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, the bigger the spotlight, the fiercer the debates become. After all is said and done, the overriding question is, what comes next? If her first year is any indication, Caitlyn Clark has the makings of a once-in-a-generation talent. She's lifted her team, revitalized national interest, and prompted living legends to speak her name in reverence. Skeptics can doubt her longevity or question whether the hype is sustainable, but the wave she's created shows no sign of receding. Instead, it's surging to new heights with every game, every highlight clip, and every heated rivalry matchup. The final word from those who've witnessed her rise, from Bird to Jordan, from Shaq to Iverson, seems unanimous. She's changing the WNBA's landscape. She's pointing the way toward a new era where long-distance shooting and creative offense take center stage and where intense rivalries draw eyeballs around the world. Now the burden rests on the league to capitalize on her magnetism. Will the WNBA refine officiating standards to match the evolving style of play? Will franchises step up with better investments, stronger rosters, and greater marketing push? The ball is in their court. But here's the real takeaway. Caitlyn Clark is redefining what it means to be a star in women's basketball. She's crossing boundaries, obliterating records, and igniting passionate debates among the biggest icons the sport has ever known. And she's only just begun. When you think about her story a few years from now, ask yourself, will Caitlyn's rise be the moment the WNBA truly took flight, catapulting women's basketball into a golden era? Or will she be a legend who fought valiantly against a system too slow to adapt? For now, the stage is set, the attention is massive, and the next chapter could be the most thrilling yet. The only thing left is to see if she can keep rewriting the rules of a game that seems more ready than ever for her fearless brand of brilliance.